Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you today. We're continuing to talk Raiders, obviously. And I had told you that today we were going to really take you inside the fan perspective. And I need to tell you, we're putting it off one day. We're not delaying it. I mean, it's delayed, but it's not denied. It's coming. You'll understand tomorrow why. Because today I really want to hit a point that as I talk with NFL people to get their assessment of the Raiders, I'm not saying they all use the words that I'm about to use, but they all used some semblance of the words that I'm about to use. And I texted it to several of them and said, "What do you think of this title for my podcast?" And they all liked it. And that's Pete Carroll's new role could be career defining. And so I want to walk you back through what I'm saying, and I want to talk to you about moving forward. What are some of the answers? Because I talk to a lot of NFL people. Pete Carroll is a certain Hall of Famer. And I don't care who you are. Let's assume the worst, that he utterly fails with the Raiders. Okay? He's still one of less than a handful of men who've won titles in college and the pros. He's a champion. He's a great man. He's impacted numerous people's lives. He is a terrific person, which isn't what gets you in the Hall of Fame. There's people in the Hall of Fame that aren't terrific people. But his career, I don't want you to think that I'm saying a failure in Las Vegas takes him out of the Hall of Fame, because it doesn't. Nothing here happens. But he also has everything to gain here and nothing to lose. Pete Carroll didn't take this job because he was broke. Pete Carroll didn't take this job because he had nothing better to do. Pete Carroll took this job because he wanted it. He wanted the challenge. It is one of the NFL's defining franchises. I've done this, talked to you about this ad nauseum. It is one of professional sports' premier franchises, regardless of the sport. And it's a franchise that, quite frankly, prior to his arrival, had gone from greatness and landed itself and run itself right into the ground. It was a organization whose only consistency was inconsistency, while selling just win, baby, to the fans. The only thing they did was lose. That is the reality. So if Pete Carroll were able to make this his swan song and get this team even up to championship quality, I think it becomes one of the greatest achievements of his career. You could argue, and I think effectively, USC was in a better spot to win than where the Raiders were when he got here. I think very effectively, you could argue Seattle was in a better spot when he got there than where the Raiders are today. And so, or were when he got here. And so to me, I think this is defining, because if he gets this place, not even if he wins a Super Bowl, but if he gets it to a championship quality, this could be the defining achievement, even with 2 championships, because he did it at such an iconic franchise. I thought that was interesting, hearing NFL people talk about that. I read you a text yesterday from an NFL person who shared with me about the Raiders and the offense. I watched the film again. I did not want to, but I did. Someone in the Raiders pointed something out to me and wanted my thoughts on it, so I went back and watched the film on it. And I go back to, again, I thought Geno Smith played very well. Literally running for his life. When he had time, it was almost like he was looking around like, oh my God, am I going to get crushed? But again, I want to read his stats here. 19 of 29, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 5 sacks, and oh, by the way, nearly 133 rating. That's a great performance. Geno Smith, in 2 of the Raiders' 3 games, has performed admirably, as good as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Week 1, as good as a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. Week 3, as good as a top 10. Week 2, bottom 5. But when you look at them between a 10 and 15 guy, there's going to be those games. But we've got to put all the attention today and on 2 areas. One area that I didn't get into a lot yesterday was special teams, which were abysmal, which is unlike a Tom McMahon coached. And I said this about the defense. I'm going to say it about special teams. Because Tom McMahon's guys don't lay eggs, same with Patrick Graham, I'm willing to call last week a mulligan, move on. If it repeats, then absolutely everything's on the table. But the special teams was not special. It was terrible. And so years ago, Bobby Bowden, the legendary Florida State coach, tremendous man and an amazing coach. He talked with me about, I spent an afternoon with him and we talked for hours about numerous subjects. But one of the things we talked about was coaching. And he talked about if you got 2 defensive backs that are struggling and all the rest are getting it. He says, that tells me it's on the players. He said, but if I start seeing a multitude of guys failing, he goes, then I start to look to coaching. So the reason I watched the film last night was someone who's part of the Raider family asked me to go back and watch, and I did. Didn't want to watch it, and quite frankly, hope I never watch it again. But the thing that stood out to me was the player execution on the offensive line was brutal. And execution on special teams, brutal. I saw a lot of mistakes on defense. Most of them, not all, execution. And so when you have multiple players who are not performing well, Bobby Bowden said it best. He looks at himself and the coaching. But when you look at player execution, this week the Raiders host the Chicago Bears. And there's going to be a massive amount of Bear fans at Allegiant Stadium. A massive amount. And last week when they host the Chargers, I told you that the crowd was going to be overwhelmingly Raiders. I was correct. I believe this crowd at best will be 50-50 Bears. At best. I think it's going to probably be worse, but that's purely speculative at this point. Based on information, it's just not a hunch, but I'm not willing to call that shot. This is about pride this week with these players. If I was Pete Carroll, in fact, I asked a former NFL head coach this question. This is the text I sent to him. And it was a long text exchange. So I'm just going to read you one part. So bear with me for 1 second while I pull it up. Here's what I said to him. Ready? What does Pete do from here? How would you have handled this situation? This is what he said. I would gather them all in a room on Saturday night before the game at the hotel. It'd be right after they ate, while they're sitting there with their desserts. And I would tell them, we're going to watch this game from last week together. Normally, I would never do that. Normally, I would not even recommend it, nor even remotely pretend like that's a good idea. You have to put last week behind you. But to me, you can't. As I watched the game, what kept standing out to me was player execution. You're right, because I'd mentioned what I saw. I would watch the film with the team. I would stand up and simply say this. Tomorrow you play for pride. Tomorrow you get to take the taste of this loss out of your mouth. Tomorrow you get to go prove to all your critics who said that you're bums, terrible, should be traded, time to rebuild, time to reload, time to re-something, and let them know last week was an anomaly. But this week, it's about you, boys. This week's about pride. A lot of you performed a lot of ways. not like we signed you to play. Tomorrow is your chance to make your statement. You had a bad game. You're not the player you showed everyone in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow is about you. That's what he said. And those players are going to go into that Allegiant with a very strong Bears crowd. And this game on Sunday has nothing to do with the Bears. I'm not going to talk about Ben Johnson, who many believe is Josh McDaniels 2.0. I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't think the Raiders should have hired Ben Johnson. I told you at the time. An NFL executive said the Raiders dodged a bullet. I'm not a fan of Caleb Williams, but this has nothing to do with the Raiders. I don't care if they were playing Joe Montana in the 49ers. I don't care if they're playing Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. I don't care if they were playing Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid tomorrow. Sunday. I don't care. Tomorrow's game is about the Raiders playing like Raiders. Now, there is a bunch of guys who did not play poorly in that game. I told you. I thought Geno was really good. I thought Max was unbelievable. I thought Trey Tucker, fantastic. Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. I mean, I can go through. There were others that played well, too. There were some guys on defense that played well. Not all of them. But to me, the story of that game was the offensive line got beat up, pushed around, and embarrassed. If you were a guy that couldn't get into the game, you should be embarrassed. If you were talking about a lineman, if you were a lineman that played, you should have been embarrassed. The Washington Commanders stood up and punched you in the face. More porridge, please. The Washington Commanders came over, stole your lunch, your best friend's lunch, and then asked you to make a donation to their 401k, and you did. This is a tight-knit team. I guarantee you Geno Smith isn't in there. Yeah, guys, come on, I played great. No, it's not how Geno is. Max Crosby's not running around the facility saying, I played great, y'all suck. That's not Max. That's not what great players do. It's not what leaders do. But when they step on the field at Allegiant Stadium, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a season-defining game. I told you when the season started, there's always a loss on the road and usually a loss at home that just don't make a lot of sense. And I predicted this to be a loss for the Raiders. To me, this is a statement game. This is not about Pete Carroll. It's not about Brennan Carroll. It's not about Patrick Graham or Tom McMahon. It's not about Mark Davis or Tom Brady. It's not about John Spytek. Oh, we win as a friend. No, stop. I don't want to hear the football talk. This is about 53 active roster guys, 47 game day guys looking in the mirror saying, I don't like what we just did, but it's not who we are. And in front of a hostile crowd in our own stadium, we got to quit talking about the fans got to show up, and we got to show up. We have to go back to earning our fan and Raider Nation's trust back. You want to know how you win it? You go beat a Bears team. That isn't real good. With a ton of their fans in your stadium because your fans sell their tickets because they don't believe in you. They want to. I wish you could see all the email I got. Hondo, I'm in an abusive relationship. Hondo, I'm struggling. Hondo, this. My kid, I grew up a Raider fan with my dad. My kids are growing up. They've never won. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it's just, this is a fan base that's begging the players, we want to believe in you. Oh, by the way, half the crowd's going to be Bear fan because we don't. This is a statement game. I don't think this team's a playoff. If they win Sunday, I don't think they're a playoff team. I'm not fooling myself with unrealistic expectations here. And I'm going to tell you this. I've been around a long time. You are what your record says you are. That's a famous football line. But that team we saw last week is not indicative of the talent on this team. I thought they'd lose. It's one thing to lose a football game. It's another thing to get your butt kicked. They not only whooped you, they picked you up and whooped you again. And when you were laying on the ground crying no mas, they said, no, We ain't done. And they picked you up again. They beat you like a piñata. It was so bad, I thought candy was going to start falling out from underneath the jerseys of the offensive line. Now is when you make a statement. Now is when you go into what should be a harder environment, Now you go into what is going to be a harder environment than it should be because it's your environment. It's harder because you got to earn your trust of your fan base and you got to go make a statement. I've seen a lot of people, and I'm going to call it right now, erroneously attack the character of those men on the offensive line. They all look terrible. I'm not going to sit here and try to put lipstick on a turd. They looked terrible, but I know every single one of them. They're good guys. They're good men. They're honorable people. Many of them I consider my friends. It is no secret what I think of Dylan Parham. Absolutely tremendous man. One of the finest human beings you will ever meet in your entire life. He is not just a great guy and husband. He is a terrific human being. I consider myself humbled because of the respect I carry for Dylan Parham. He was terrible. It's not a reflection of his character as a human. I expect him to respond. He's better than he played. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, he was great. No, he wasn't. And Dylan knows he wasn't. Delmar DJ Glaze, the mule, played. He hasn't even started 17 games yet. He's still really a rookie. Didn't have a good game. Fantastic kid. If I had a daughter in his age range, and not because he's a football player, I would love for my daughter to marry somebody like Delmar DJ Glaze the Mule. What a precious young man. Good football player who's young that got his butt kicked. As does everyone in the NFL. He's got to respond. Colton Miller, one of the finest people you'll ever meet in your life. Colton Miller is straight out of central casting for, I'm from the Midwest, and in the Midwest, this is what they would say about people like Colton Miller. He good people. Alex, Kappa, Jordan, Jackson Powers Johnson. These are good men, okay? But that line got embarrassed. The special teams got embarrassed. Defense, I don't think it was as embarrassing. The offense just three and out, or could not keep anything sustained. So they're just out there on the field the entire time. I think I told you, I think they had 55 plays or something like that. Hang on, I'll tell you real quick. The offense had 56 plays. Had 57 plays. The defense did not look good at all. And there were some guys that played really bad. But the entire team has to come together. If Pete Carroll is able to get this thing off a high center and finish this year with a trajectory of hope, this could be a career-defining coaching job when it's all over for him. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's already one of the great ones. But I'm sorry. Bobby said it's right. When more than one guy is, that's on coaching, and I'm not denying that. But Sunday's about pride. There were some plays that Chip called on Sunday that when I watched the film last night, and I was asked by someone in part of Raider family to rewatch it, and they gave me some specific places where Chip absolutely had the right play called. If there had been any execution, if there had been a chip, and I don't mean Chip Kelly, if there had been an offensive lineman rotating correctly, if there had just been, if you would you, should you, could you. The Raider Nation is tired of that crap. The play was there, could have been executed. Sunday's game is all about this team saying to their fans, we're better than that. It's about pride. It's about pride. Do you roll over and who cares? Or do you take it personal? I'm going to tell you a story about Matthew Stafford. And it fits the Raiders. But this is how during his rookie year, I knew he was going to be special. Rookie year, the team had been terrible. And he was so mad. And I essentially tried to comfort him with, if it makes you feel better, people hated Peyton Manning too, his rookie year. And he said, doesn't matter. It's a standard I hold myself to. I remember walking out of that room, and Bill Keenest, who is the longtime PR guy of the of the Lions, and to this day has been a dear friend. He works for the NFL. Now, you guys have seen him on this podcast. And I remember saying to Bill Keenis, Bill, that kid's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. That's special. When you are harder on yourself than the fans, when your standard wasn't met, and it's not a big deal, that's a danger. But when your standard's not met, I remember one other time where I thought he had played very well considering the circumstances. And Matthew said to me, no, I didn't. We didn't win. Nobody plays well if you don't win. If the defense gives up 50 and we score 49, I didn't do my job. My job is to score more points than them. I mean, it was the mentality of a Matthew Stafford. Peyton Manning was that way. Barry Sanders was that way. There are a handful. I'll tell you right now, Max Crosby's that way. Now, y'all know I'm friends with Max. I'm not denying that. If Max had 20 sacks, 4 interceptions for touchdowns, and 2 fumble recoveries for touchdowns, so he had 20 sacks and 6 touchdowns, and the Raiders lost 43-42, he's mad. I remember one time after, and it was just him and I chopping it up after a game, and the cameras weren't rolling. It was just me and him talking, and he'd played really well. And I said, brother, are you able to even appreciate this? He goes, no. There is no personal achievement if you don't win. So what I'm getting to, I believe in Pete Carroll. I think it's absolutely fair to question his coaches because they're his coaches, but not after 3 games. You can certainly say that's concerning. That's something I'm going to keep my eye on. But I had somebody text me yesterday and just said, you would get a lot more clicks if you'd really come out hard on Pete's kid. Okay. If the offensive line continues to be terrible, that day may come. Y'all know I was hard on Getsy. Y'all know there have been other coaches I was hard on. The Raiders asked me to stop. And by the way, they were not rude about it. So I don't want to imply that they weren't rude or threatening at all. They just asked me to stop. I'm not afraid of it. But I'm not doing it 3 games in. That's just asinine. As much as you want the players to be professional and perform at a standard, as a journalist, if you chase clicks, then you don't have a standard. I have done this for decades because I hold a standard. If we're sitting here in December and it's this bad, you better believe I'm going to be questioning anybody on the staff. That would be fair. I'm sorry. Sunday is a gut check for the players. It's a gut check. It's a pride check. And let's just say I have reason to believe that message is going to come loud and clear through to this team by the captains. That message is going to come through. Now we're going to find out, do the players respond to the captain? If we're sitting here in December and you're looking at a Raider team that's completely collapsed, there are a lot of things we're going to be talking about, but we're not. We're not even out of September. Pete Carroll is secure in the Hall of Fame, college and pro. But if he's able to turn around the Raiders, it could be the zenith of an amazing career. He fails here, his career loses no luster. He wins here, it becomes his defining moment. Sunday is not about Pete Carroll. He would argue with me. He would say, I'm the head coach, because that's what great leaders do. Pete isn't out there trying to block someone. Pete's not out there trying to execute a punt return or kick coverage. Pete's not out there chasing Caleb. Neither is Chip, neither is Patrick. The game of football is played by players. Sunday is all about pride. They can't come in and look like that back-to-back weeks. This organization and this fan base is too smart. They know the game. Sunday's about pride. You want to know who the Raiders are playing? They're playing the Raiders.